Hey, Pascal here, nice to see you again. And when you watch this video, you probably use Final Cut Pro 10 and you want to get into color grading, but you don't want to buy all of those expensive plugins for that. And I have a good message for you, because it's actually possible with all those new Final Cut Pro color correction filters to do all the color correction and grading just inside Final Cut Pro 10. So in this video, I will show you how to do that. So with the update, I think it was 10.4 from Final Cut Pro 10, it actually got a huge update for its color correction capabilities, and a lot of people were waiting for that. It's already a longer time ago, but we will use only these tools from Final Cut Pro, inside Final Cut Pro 10 right now, to do all the color correction and grading. So let's get into Final Cut and I will show you how it works. So, like in the last video I published, in the sound design video, I will also work again with the beginning of my new 2018 recap video. And as you can see, I already started editing here. We added the sound design in the last episode. And now let's say I want to add some color grading, but I don't want to use any plugins. So what I will start off with, this is footage from the Mavic 2 Pro. These two clips here. Then we got one Panasonic clip here with a GH5. Again, Mavic 2 Pro, Panasonic GH5. And this is also all GH5. So I'm basically matching two cameras here right now. And this is basically the first step, or the second step. Like the first step will be to color correct your footage to have a good contrast and exposure and so on, and the saturation right. Then we want to match those clips together from multiple cameras and multiple shooting times as well. And also then we want to do the final grade, like applying a look to that. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to do, because it's shot in the log color profile, which is pretty flat, as you can see, there's not much contrast in it. I want to add a LUT, and this is a LUT that transfers it from the log color space to the Rec 709 color space, because that's a bit easier to work with. And I save all the stuff by pulling all the contrast and details out there. The LUT does everything for me. So I go to my LUTs here, and it's DLOG-M to Rec 709. You find this LUT on the DJI website from the Mavic 2 Pro. You can download it there, and usually with most, or basically every camera you can get that can shoot log, the manufacturer provides a LUT for that you can make this step, and this is really cool. So it's easy, just do it. Download this LUT and use it for your first step. Now you can see it already looks a lot better already, and I want to turn my color scopes on here, like the RGB parade, and we can clearly see that the white balance is not perfect. So yeah, I would say, yeah, I like these blue colors in these clouds, but it's definitely a bit too bluish. So what I want to do here, I will add the color wheels, and there you find temperature and color tone. So let's make it a little bit warmer, and you can also already see in the color parade that the blues get a bit less now, and the red is increasing, and also the green is increasing, and we want to fix that later because now it has kind of a greenish tint. So let's bring the blue and the red at around the same level. I would say that fits pretty good. And now let's remove this green tint by going to the tint and drag it to the right. So as you can see right now here, it got all a bit better. So, but I would say can still make this image a bit warmer. I would say around that is good. A good indicator is also when you go to RGB overlays. So now we can see like this white space here, there's a lot of white in there. And when you see white in the RGB overlay, then it means that this has a perfect white point. So it seems like our white balance is good right now. Even if in the RGB parade you can see a little bit of a difference here, especially in the shadows. But I would say that works pretty good. What we could try, for example, now we can go to the shadows here. This is shadows, midtones, and highlights. And I could add a, well, like try to get rid of that reddish tint there. Yeah, I would say that looks a lot better. We still have a bit more reds in the shadows, but in that case it's good for me. So the next step that I want to do, and I use three-way color correction for that, I want to add a little bit of contrast without losing any details. So I will bring the shadows down here a little bit. And I don't want to touch the 0 here, because that means that I will lose details in the shadows. And I will do the same with the highlights. And with the highlights, it's important that you ask yourself if you have any light sources, direct light sources, or reflections in your shot. So right now you can see here this guy is pretty much blown out a little bit. So I can actually drag it up a bit higher, the highlights. But the thing is, if you, let's say you film away from the sun and there are no reflections in your shot, then it means that you shouldn't go to 100% or 100 IRE with your highlights, because those like between 90 and 100 IRE that are usually direct light source, like you would point the camera to the sun, then the sun would be this 100 IRE. But in other cases, when you don't have direct light sources, it's usually better to stay at 80 or maximum 90 IRE with your highlights. It also depends a bit on the look you want to have, but because I don't want to do a final grade here, I want to do a proper color correction, I need to have a look for that. So in that case, we have a pretty bright sky in the background, so I will have it like just under 100 IRE, and I would say that already looks pretty good. So now maybe the shadows can be a little bit less. Yeah, that's great. So you can already see how much better it looks. So that was before, and that's after. Looks a lot more realistic, a lot nicer. White balance is good. There's some contrast in it already. And yeah, so this is good for the first grade, like the first part of the color correction, the base grade. And now we have the next one here, and I will just copy the grade that I did before for that. And yeah, it doesn't work so good here because it's a complete different clip. The white balance in the highlight looks pretty good. Maybe there's a little bit much blue in the shadows, so I will turn on the color wheels again. And I want to make sure that everything is set to normal. So how I basically do it is I watch on this RGB parade while I'm moving those shadows color slider here, so I can see directly how it affects my colors. And yeah, I would say that looks pretty good right now. And so I can already go to the next step, which is the three-way color correction. Oh yeah, actually in the first step, let's go back. I also want to add a little bit of saturation here. I forgot that. I mean, it was not bad before, but you can do a little bit more, because the LUT that I will use later for the final look, I will definitely pull out a little bit of the saturation again, so it's better to put a bit more in here. That looks good. So again, to this second clip. It's also from the Mavic 2 Pro, so it's a bit easier to match. And yeah, so in that clip you can see we already have the highlights at 100, which is because of the sun here. So I just need to bring my shadows down, not too much of course. You can already see how much it pulls out the details here. I also want to bring the midtones a little bit down in that case. And so we already got two nice clips here. So the thing is now, do those clips match already? The thing is we have completely different lighting here. This is away from the sun and this is into the sun. So the lighting looks very different, and here all the midtones, all the trees are like too dark. You cannot see any details in there anymore. Just not the case here. But to match a little bit more, I want to make it a little bit colder. So I go back to my color wheels and I just make it a little bit colder. That was too much. Maybe 4600 could work well. 4800. Maybe that, yeah. I would say that looks pretty good. And then the next clip, my Panasonic. And for that case I will start again because it's another camera. I will add also a Log to 709 LUT, which is the Vlog to 709 LUT. You find it on the Panasonic website. And wow, that already looks great. The white balance is set very good here. I don't know why, but it's very easy to set the white balance on the GH5. Like the GH5 has this nice white card feature where you hold the white card in front and you press one button and it sets the white balance automatically. That's great, but a lot of times I don't have the time outside to do that, so I simply set it to sunny or cloudy, and the GH5 really does a great job with that. As you can see here in the color parade, the white balance looks very good. We can also go to the RGB overlay. You see a lot of white here, so that's great. Yeah, it really works pretty good. So here I won't have to do that much. I would just add the three-way color correction, set the exposure. You also see here that those clouds here are blown out because we're filming into the sun. So I can really go to 100 IRE here, and then I want to bring that down without crushing the shadows, of course. And let's see how it performs to the other clip. So I would say this is a lot more blue, a lot colder than the other clip. So from the base correction now, this would be perfect here, but to match it with the other clips, what I will do is I will add the color wheels again, and I will make it a little bit warmer so that it matches the clip from the drone more. And the reason why I use a clip from the drone now to match it is simply that I like the look of this drone clip more than this cold clip that was here. So as you can see, add a little bit more temperature here. Let's see how that looks how that works together. I would say it's already a lot better. Maybe we can give it a little tick more, maybe 6500. Let's see. So you can see these clips match pretty good. And yeah, I don't want to grade every single clip here right now. I think that's a bit too much for that video. So the next step would be to add our final grading. And there are basically two ways that you can do it. You can either just choose a LUT from someone else, or a LUT that you created by yourself, maybe in Photoshop or in Affinity Photo. I use Affinity Photo for that because it's a one-time payment and not this subscription model. I really hate it. So let's say we start with a LUT. That's the easier way. So what I really love a lot is the steel teal look from Ryan Nangle, and you can see like this works great. What a lot of people do for the final look, sometimes depends on my video how I do it, is that you use an adjustment layer. This is from Color Finale right now, but there are actually, when you Google Final Cut Pro 10 adjustment layers, you will find some free adjustment layers as well that do exactly the same job as that one here. So I just drag it over. And what the adjustment layer basically does is it applies all the effects to the videos that are under the adjustment layer. So when we get started here, apply a LUT, like the Ryan Nangle LUT, like said before, steel teal, and that already looks pretty good. I love it. And we go now into the next one. That fits. And with the Panasonic clip, it fits as well. And with that LUT, it's actually quite easy that the shots still match, because the LUT basically uses only two colors, really, like this blue, this very desaturated blue, and the reds here. But it's a bit too much. This LUT, when you use it at 100%, like right now, it looks a bit unrealistic. So I will bring that LUT a little bit down to, in that case, let's say 0.8, that we get a little bit more green in the trees. That looks great, yeah. You can actually turn that off here, the video scopes, you don't need it for that. So you can see it like that. Yeah, that looks cool. I would say that looks a little bit too dark here. So we go back to our main color correction, and I will bring the highlights a little bit up. That looks cool. And what I also want to do in the final look, the LUT alone is not enough for me. I want to add some color curves. Color curves are amazing. We can basically just create an S-curve here. And now you see the before and after. It looks so much more cinematic. The curves really bring out this S-curve. It brings out more contrast, and not just over the image, but Also, a lot of details pop a lot more when you add an S-curve. So an S-curve is really something magic that I use for nearly all of my clips. Let's do it again, like this is before, this is after, and it's just a small adjustment here and it goes so quick. Let's bring it even down a little bit more. And what I really love about the S-curve is that when I apply it, like you can see in the RGB parade, is that still all of my details in the shadows and highlights are in there, because I am not doing or adding contrast between the black point and the white point. I use more the midtones to create this contrast, and that really makes it great. So here's a before and after, makes it so much better, and it's already applied for the other clips. In that clip I wouldn't use it because the contrast here is already too much. So I mean, it also makes it look a bit nicer. Yeah, maybe I would just adjust the S-curve for that clip a little bit. So how we'll do it is I will make a cut here only for that clip, and they look great. And then I will simply raise the shadows here a little bit so that it's not too much of an S-curve. Just a little bit here. You can also go a bit deeper to crush the very blacks, but not the rest. Yeah, I would say that looks pretty good for that shot. And then when I go to that look right here, you can also see it again. What it does, it also makes it look a lot better. It's a little bit of a contrast. So let's see how it looks now. Great, I love it. What you can then also do is to add another adjustment layer. It's not really color grading, but it makes it a little bit more cinematic. Depends on the video you want to do. Usually don't do that for clients, because ads, when you produce a commercial, commercials usually should have a bit more space on the screen, so you don't want to have cinematic bars, because that's what I would do now. This is the letterbox effect from Final Cut, and so it is 235 to have this 21:9 ratio. You can set the offset here. I would say, yeah, that part looks pretty nice. And like the problem with that effect is, and that's why I use an adjustment layer for that, and a second one is that sometimes the framing doesn't really work together. So in that case here, for example, I can adjust the offset of those shots, and that works pretty well. So maybe here I can go to 0. Yeah, 0 works pretty good here. And there we got it. It looks pretty cinematic. That's how easy you can get great colors. But of course, right now I used the LUT from right angle, and it's a little bit cheating, right? So let's do it without the LUT. So I will get rid of the color curves and that. And then I want to do it my own way, and how you can do it is you simply add the color and saturation curves, and there you have the color, the hue versus hue curve. And so here in the trees we have reds, orange and green tones. So what you can basically do is you can mark the trees here, and then we can start adjusting the curves. Probably not be the exact same result as the right angle look, but could get close to that. So first I will actually do too much of that now on propose, so that will make it a lot easier for me later. Okay, that looks quite good. A little bit more red here. Okay, that destroys it. Okay, I would say that's good so far. And then we also have these blue areas here. We'll add a second hue versus hue for that, for the clouds. You can make it more greenish. Let's make it more bluish. I would say that fits pretty good already, but here this is a bit, I don't like that in the background there, there's too much purple in there. That's why I added a little bit more green. It's really difficult actually. So let's use this purple colors there more to get rid of that. Okay, and then I also want to get rid of the saturation. A little bit less saturation in those parts. It doesn't do so much. That's a little bit more teal, okay. So with the curves you can already do a lot, as you can see. So let's see what we have here now, like that's what it was before, and that's what it is now, and it's a little bit too much, I would say. And that's why here's the mix. So I will also set the mix here to, in that case, let's say 0.7. Also same here. Oh no, here this needs to be at 0. Yeah, let's say 0.9 is good. Also that 0.8 then maybe. Okay, yeah, I would say that's good. And the next step, of course, again, using the color curves, the S curve inside here. So, but that looks pretty good, as you can see. Of course, this is just for the first adjustment layer right now. Here I still have the right angle stuff, so let's insert our own look here. See, it's a bit similar, but of course here I also want to adjust the curve again. Maybe crush the variableks a little bit more. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, great. And I would say this look right now that I created is not as heavy as the look from right angle, but it works quite good as well. Also need to insert it here, of course. Ship. And insert. You can see that the blues are pretty green, and that is because I wanted to get rid of that purplish stuff here in the background. So what you could do to compensate for that is simply that I will go to my secondary correction here, and I could actually make it a bit more bluish. I would say that works quite good. So does that fit the first one? I would say yes. Yeah, it's around the same blue. Yeah, that's great. So that way you can actually create your complete own looks. Don't necessarily need to use LUTs all the time, but I would recommend to at least get a tool like Color Finale, or for just $60 buy Affinity Photo, because in Affinity Photo you can easily create your own LUTs. And I think I will publish another tutorial in the future how to create your own LUTs in Affinity Photo, because this is a really handy way. And it's also quite easy to do. So yeah, as you could see, this is actually quite easy to completely do color grading and color correction. Like color correction is making your footage usable, and color grading is creating your own look. So as you can see, it's really easy to do that in Final Cut Pro 10. It doesn't take so much time. It takes a bit of experience, so do it a lot, play around. And what I could recommend to learn it is to publish one video per week. The videos doesn't need to be long. Let's say 30 seconds to 1 minute. Just go out, get some shots, put it together in a video, do some color grading, and if you do that once per week over a year, you will become so good at that. I did it, and this is really the best way to learn it. So I hope you like this tutorial, and if you want to have more tutorials like that about color grading and also about filmmaking in general, then please hit the subscribe button. Now I publish one video every Sunday, so I hope to see you in the next one.